you guys. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our March retiree chapter meeting. My name is Ann Friedman, and I am the chairperson of the chapter. Today's topic is New York City's hidden gems, lesser known museums of New York. New York City is home to well over 100 museums, and today we'll have an opportunity to learn about 4 of them. Uh, Before we start, let me just thank a couple of people. Marva Lilly is taking notes. Bob Nelson solicited the speakers. And we have Jessica Barone on staff, and Bonnie, our secretary, and Diane, our vice chair, helping with the program. So we're going to start with Victoria Monroe from the Alice Austin House. Executive Director and Curator Victoria Monroe has worked with the Alice Austin House since 2015. She holds an MA in Arts Education and has had a long-standing relationship with the humanities in the community of Staten Island, the humanities community, on Staten Island. She serves as current board president of the Museums Council of New York City, and she's on the executive board of New York Parks and Open Spaces. So,
Hi, everyone.
yeah, hi.
It's nice to be here today. Can I begin?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's lovely to see so many participants today. Yes, I'm the executive director of the Alice Austin House, which is a wonderful house museum. It's one of 23 sites that are Parks Department sites that are managed by Historic House Trust of New York City. The house itself stretches all the way back to 1690, so it's one of New York's oldest properties, and it's located on the waterfront of Staten Island. I have a slide deck that I'm going to share with you all today. As I speak, there's quite a few images, so I'm going to move through them quite quickly. And you might notice that I have an accent. I'm originally from New Zealand, but I've been in New York for 30 years. It just doesn't go away. But New York's a melting pot. So now I'm going to share my screen. So just bear with me for 1 minute. And I want to make sure I get back to the beginning. So today I'm going to be talking to you about our wonderful namesake, Alice Austin. And you can see her here. She's around about 22 years old in this photograph that was actually taken by her uncle Oswald, who was one of the people to help her get her start in photography. He gave her a camera when she was about age 10. Alice was born in 1866 and she lived until 1952. And she left us a treasure trove of around 8,000 photographs of a changing New York City and the world of her travels. Okay, these are some little cards that often would be used in place of calling cards. You may be familiar with them. People would often have a lot of these cards printed so that they could leave them with friends, send them to people, and Alice also collected them and would arrange them and photograph them. But the reason I've included this photograph is because the small child standing alone is Alice Austin. So it's one of the few photographs that we have of her when she was very, very young. This is Alice's grandfather and grandmother. Now, they would purchase what we now call the Alice Austin House, that is the museum, in 1844, and they purchased it on Staten Island. It's a waterfront property. It's very beautiful, as a holiday home, but they unfortunately lost two of their children to sickness. Manhattan was a really filthy place, and they decided to renovate the home and make it their permanent residence. And so Alice's grandfather actually turned the house into a Victorian Gothic cottage. It was, in its original circumstances from 1690, just a two-room Dutch farmhouse. Here are some other characters from Alice's life. This is her Aunt Min with the cat on her knee. Um, I always marvel at how tiny Min's waist, her corseted waist was. So Min was married to Oswald, who gave Alice her first camera, and he was a Danish ship's captain. And Min spent a terrific amount of time at sea with him. In fact, so much so that she lost all of her hair. Some of the voyages were quite difficult. And on the other side, the gentleman in the top hat is Alice's Uncle Peter, who was also very invested in photography. He was a chemist and he wrote several articles about the science behind photography. You can just see on this image of Uncle Peter and his children that Alice has actually scratched her initials, if you look over on the grassy area. And the scratched initials read EAA. Her first name was actually Elizabeth, but she went by Alice. And of course, she had the surname Austen, and that was chosen because her surname at birth was Munn, but her father actually abandoned her mother. And so Alice and her mother would move into the family home, now the Alice Austen house, when she was teeny tiny. And she grew up around all of these fantastic adults, including three Irish maids. Two of them are pictured here. And actually, this snow scene is very reminiscent of what we've been living through the last month at the Alice Austen house. So today, when you visit the museum, Alice's former home, you can learn all about these members of her family. We have a family tree on the wall. So when Alice moved into the house, she was living with her grandmother and grandfather, her mother, her Uncle Peter, Aunt Min, and Oswald, the three Irish maids. And it wouldn't be until 1917 that another member would move into the house, and that was Alice's life partner, Gertrude Tate. They were together for 55 years, and so we are a nationally designated site of LGBTQ history. Here's Alice on the front porch reading the newspaper. She often took self-portraits where she'd use a long shutter release cable and she'd hide it under props, in this instance, the newspaper. But the porch looks just like this today. We have the lattice door. We also have the original 1690 Dutch farm door. Here's another beautiful view of the site. The gardens have been recreated according to Alice's photographs. We're incredibly lucky because we have a full historic document of what the home and grounds looked like when she lived there. So when you visit today, the house looks out across the harbor onto Brooklyn, Manhattan, and New Jersey. So you have sweeping views, which also include a view of the Statue of Liberty. This is exactly what the museum looks like when you come and visit and encounter us. Okay, on this page, we've got actually the two figures there in the white dress. That's Gertrude Tate, and she's looking out at the harbor. And it's absolutely fascinating, this connection to the waterfront that Alice just had. She basically documented the waterfront as though it was part of her job. She was definitely had major ambitions to be a professional photographer and had paid assignments. So anything that you might hear about Alice being an amateur, I would dispute entirely. But Alice was also a fantastic swimmer and also could sail boats. And she even sailed with a party all the way down to Florida. This is a view of the interior when Alice lived there. Now we use a lot of these spaces for interpretive panels. The house actually isn't very big, as you would have seen, it's a cottage. So we try to use every area of the home to really interpret Alice's life and work. And we have the photographs to work from. So we're not presented as a historic house, like you might expect, because we use the photographs to do that work for us. So this is what the foyer looks like today. This is a photograph of the formal parlor with Alice's grandfather sitting in the chair. And you can actually see it's interesting this year because if you look at the fireplace, right sitting on top of it is a very, very large chain link. And that actually is the wall secure link for the Great Chain, which was the Hudson River chain. Now, Alice's grandmother's great uncle owned the ironworks that forged that chain that stretched across the Hudson River during the Revolutionary War to stop British boats coming in. And Alice and Gertrude actually got evicted from the house in 1945, and they had struggled for 15 years to stay there by selling Alice's collection, fantastic collection of objects. And one of the things that she sold was the chain. And we did not know where it had gone until last year. There was an intern doing social media for another historic site, and she reached out to us and said, "Oh, I found this letter that says this man bought the chain link from Alice Austen, and he donated it to Boscobel House, which is actually located on the Hudson. And so they have the historic chain link, but are lending it back to us in June this year as part of our America 250 celebration. So that'll be a really exciting time for us. People have searched for the chain link for decades at the house, believing that Alice may have buried it there. But she did, in fact, now we know, sell it. And we're just very thankful to know where it is and that it's safe. Now, this is a photograph which is one of hundreds that Alice took on the streets of New York City. So this is taken around about 1890. So New York was filled with immigrants that held different jobs that they would be sellers and have small markets and whatnot. And Alice, she religiously documented all of these different jobs that these people had. And she even self-published a book of these images called Street Types of New York. That's how she referred to them. She would have to have taken up to 50 pounds of photographic equipment on her bicycle into Manhattan. She would have caught the ferry just as we do today if we're taking public transport. But she also would have had to have won these people's trust because it was no small thing to set up this cumbersome wooden camera, and she used glass plates. So she had to carry every single glass plate in its own package. And these people had to pose for her. These are some bootblacks. She photographed a lot of children that also worked in New York City. Of course, it was before the law that protected children from working at very young ages and actually gave them the right to go to school. So a lot of these immigrant children also were orphaned. And so they often lived together and helped support and protect each other in their various professions. Here are some oyster shuckers. Alice also photographed the free black community on Staten Island, which was one of the first free black communities in New York City. It's called Sandy Ground, and we have a new ferry named after it. Here is another one of these children, and they were called NYC'S. They would sell newspapers to support themselves. And here we have a part of a set of photographs that Alice took over the course of 10 years, a paid assignment to document the people and the conditions of the quarantine stations in New York City. So, a lot of us hear about Ellis Island as the processing point for immigrants, but there was also Hoffman and Swinburne Islands. They were both man-made islands, and Ellis would take a boat over to the islands and photograph the conditions there, which were not particularly pleasant at all or comfortable. As you can see, they were kept behind caged areas. It was very, very crowded. It was the absolute high point in the 1880s and 1890s of immigration to New York City. And really interestingly, I did mention to you that the house is located on the waterfront. It is very, very close to the Coast Guards, and it was known as the first house on the left that you would see as you were entering the New York Harbor. This is the Wadsworth. That's a boat that had sanitation on it. People would get sanitized on their way to the quarantine stations. And now we're going to move into a little bit more of the women's history portion of Alice's photographs. This is the model here. Her name is Daisy Elliott. She ran a women's gymnasium in New York, and she was close friends with Alice, and she would be the model for these instructional photographs for bicycling, and they would become the illustrations for Alice's friend Maria Ward's book, Bicycling for Ladies. Alice took these photographs in 1896 and with a makeshift backdrop that you can see. She took them just outside in her yard. And she was actually in a relationship with Daisy Elliott. This was just before she met Gertrude Tate. Here's another image of Daisy in the gym, and on the mattress there's actually four more figures from Alice's circle of friends, one of whom who is sitting on the mattress is Violet Ward, who actually wrote the book Bicycling for Ladies, which just got republished in 2021, and you can purchase that. It's actually a really, really fun read if you're interested in cycling history and how it relates to women's history. Alice was also musical. She could play the piano and the banjo. And this is one of her more iconic photographs. And it is so iconic because it is so risque. So Alice is breaking all the rules here. She is in this photograph with her friend Trude, not Gertrude, her partner, and they're actually in the rectory of St. John's Episcopal Church. And they're in their petticoats, they're showing their legs, which was an absolute no-no, and they've got fake cigarettes. So they're really, and their hair is down too. And I absolutely love seeing the untied hair. And this photograph, of course, would have been meant for personal circulation with her and her friends. It was taken in 1891. Another shot from 1891, three in a bed. Alice and her friends traveled widely. I don't even know how she managed to be in so many places at once during the last 10 years of the 1800s, but she was incredible, and she would even take a portable darkroom kit with her on her travels so that she could continue to develop her work. This is a very amusing set of photographs where Alice has got her friends to play out a no yes scenario with this famous tombstone, where the man is proposing to Alice's friend Julia in these shots. There's a lot of dressing up. And of course, I mentioned Alice's interest in cycling. She was interested in so many different sports and societies. Obviously, a socialite. And one of her most famous photographs, I think, would be the Dance Club, this shot here. So, one of the things that Alice did was she formed several different clubs. She was the founding member of the Staten Island Garden Club. She was the founding member of the Staten Island Bicycle Club. She had her own cooking club, but she also had the dance club. And essentially, what these clubs did was they were acceptable activities for Victorian women to do without male chaperones. So she was creating these spaces for her and her female friends to really have a lot more freedom to be their authentic selves. Most of Alice's friends did not marry or have children. This is the was formerly the dining room at the Alice Austen house. It used to be interpreted as a historic room, but sadly, as I mentioned, Alice and Gertrude were evicted from the house in 1945, so most of her things were sold and went out into the universe. We're slowly having them donated back to us, but to interpret it as a historic space, we would be using items that weren't authentic to Alice's own, you know, we don't have all the furniture from these spaces. So it's much better to be able to bring students into the spaces rather than roped off rooms and actually show them the full breadth of her work. In the central vitrine is one of Alice's cameras. She used several different cameras all at the same time because I guess for portability in some respects, but also she would often set up two or three cameras to photograph the same subject. Here are Alice and two of her friends, Julia and Julia, posing just outside near at the front of the house in men's clothes. She also had her friends act out scenes. They must have been incredibly patient with her. And here we have them in their bathing costumes and tennis. She was a champion tennis player. And in Staten Island, tennis was played for the very first time in America. So we're the home of tennis, which is quite interesting. But more interesting than that is actually the woman's history with tennis, which could be a lecture in itself. But some of you may have watched The Gilded Age, and there was all those scenes from Newport playing tennis. Alice photographed that extensively. Here she is, another view of the front porch. Some sailboats. I'm just going to speed through this because I know my time is nearly up. This was taken on that trip that I mentioned where they sailed down to Florida. And here is a photograph of Alice and Gertrude together that's actually a penny portrait. And so, as I said, they would be together for 55 years. This is the inside cover of a beautiful album that Alice dedicated to Gertrude from their 1899 trip to an area called Twilight Rest. And that's where they had met in 1897. Gertrude is in the middle, doing a dance. She has the curly hair. And that curly hair is actually a wig because she was recovering from typhoid and she had lost all of her hair. Alice and Gertrude again at twilight rest. And then the world of their travels, being photographed on the top of a boat. This is a photograph from Denmark. And so Alice and Gertrude would travel the world together. Alice was also the first woman on Staten Island to own a car, and she could fix it. She rolled with a tool bag. So she was just extremely independent. And as I said, they were society ladies too. So she kind of did it all, including a lot of dressing up. This is Alice wearing her wizard's costume, and another view of the section, which they had a lot of Asian lanterns and things like that from brought back from the travels of Aunt Min and Uncle Oswald. She also extensively photographed the natural world, and this is one of the later photographs of Alice and Gertrude together. And I'm going to stop sharing, and my dogs are barking. Sorry. But I am so happy to take questions if
Yeah,
anyone has any.
we
Sorry,
could
that was
take
a
a
very
couple of,
condensed.
thank you very much, Victoria. We could take a couple of questions.
Cecilia?
Why was she evicted from the house and was she ever able to get back to it?
Yeah, great question. So she lost all of her money in the stock market crash of 29. And so for the next 15 years, she sold off possessions, and her and Gertrude tried to run a tea room out of the house. But unfortunately, they had ended up remortgaging the house several times and they were renting it from the bank and they could no longer afford to stay. And once she was evicted, the house was actually sold. So, no, she did not get back to the house. She visited it once, but very, very sadly, Alice and Gertrude tried to take an apartment together in St. George, which is by the ferry, and they couldn't afford that. And they were both elderly, and Alice ended up having to sign a note that said that she had less than $20 to her name, and she was admitted into the Staten Island poorhouse. Um,
Mary Ann, Peter?
Sorry. So I know that lesbian is a modern term and would not be applicable to that time. But can you say anything about how, in what way their relationship was open or not open, in terms of being understood by their peers?
Absolutely. So, yes, just to clarify, Alice certainly would not have called herself a lesbian, and she passed away in 1952. So, it was a very repressive time. Um, but Alice and Gertrude were known throughout the community as a couple. They had their they shared stationery, both their names on the stationery, and we have oral histories from neighbors and relatives that talk about them as being a couple. Now, for the time period that they met, it would have been sometimes it gets referred to as a Boston marriage. That's a
Mhm.
term, that some of you may be familiar with, but also they had more freedoms then in some respects because women were thought to not even have a sexuality. So there was no suspicion about being romantic with each other. In fact, it was somewhat encouraged to be romantic because it was thought as good practice for marriage. But in the end, when Alice and Gertrude couldn't afford to keep the apartment, Gertrude moved back in with her sister in Brooklyn, but her sister would not take Alice because she described it as the wrong kind of devotion. So, very sadly, at that late stage in their lives, they were separated by poverty and, a misunderstood homophobia, if I can put it delicately.
Elise?
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. It's fascinating. This is kind of just a practical question. Is there a way to reach the Alice Austin House by public transportation?
Yes. So you can take it from Brooklyn, you can take a bus that will drop you about 1 mile up the road, or you could take the subway to the Staten Island Ferry, which is free and runs every half hour. And then from there, you can either take a bus. It's actually only 2 miles from the ferry, or I actually recommend coming with a friend and just taking an Uber. It's around about $10. And if you come during the warmer months, it's a beautiful place to have a picnic. But all of those details are actually under the visit section of our website, which is very comprehensive, and it's just www.aliceaustin.org.
Okay. Annie?
That's me? Okay.
Yes, that's you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for the beautiful, beautiful presentation of beautiful pictures. My quick question is, I didn't see the pictures for young children. If I go to the museum, would I see the picture for young children, or did they just focus on adults?
Alice did take photographs of people's children, but in the main, they're adults. And we
Okay.
teach about 5 to 6,000 school students a year from New York City. So there's lots of content that's very related to curriculum.
Mm,
But yeah, we're not, I wouldn't call us, we're very student centered,
mm.
but not young child centered.
Okay.
But we have lots of family programs on the weekend, where there's activities happening in the park, but
Mm-hmm.
also other things that you can participate in, lots of making. So
Mm-hmm.
do we do we we see about 20,000 people for art related activities per year. And we also maintain 3 contemporary galleries. So we have
Mm-hmm.
changing exhibitions, 3 changing
Mm-hmm.
exhibitions a year.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Victoria. I know you've got a deadline, and you're going to have to step off, but thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
making time for us.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so we'll move along. Is William Mead in the house? William?
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Let me give a little autobiographical introduction here. I had to shorten them. Well, William Mead is the executive director of the Banksy Museum in New York City, home to the largest collection of life-size Banksy recreations in the world. A seasoned cultural producer and creative entrepreneur, Mead brings more than 2 decades of experience in live events, music, theater, and immersive experiences to the museum. This was a very fascinating sentence. His work includes over 23 Broadway shows, the Olympics, the Super Bowl halftime show, and exhibitions with the American Museum of Natural History and National Geographic. There's more, but I shortened it a little bit so that we could hear from you about the space.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Victoria. First of all, what a terrific presentation, and I learned a lot here. Now, this is something I'm going to have to come out shortly. I didn't even know you guys were out there. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about first of all was that this as realistic and as important, as authentic as the last museum, we are the absolute opposite of that. we have a we have a museum where the artist himself has said that he hates museums. So here we are in a museum displaying his work, which is kind of an odd thing. But first of all, I just want to just a couple things in general, and one of them is that and I know that everybody comes to the table with a lot of different opinions and different thoughts on this. But first of all, Banksy is not a real person. Banksy is a pseudonym, and it could be a person, it could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be a group of people. We don't know. And I personally have never had any direct contact with Banksy. But what I'll tell you a little story about how the whole thing got going. Several years ago, my partner, who is over in France, started a Banksy replica museum. Now, the reason why it's a replica museum is now in our museum specifically, we have 167 pieces. Out of the 167 pieces, over 90% of them don't exist, have been destroyed, or have been painted over or something. So you have to understand is that when Banksy is a street artist and when he puts something on a public space, it becomes public property. So when it becomes public property, anybody can grab it, anybody can do anything to it. And as you know, and if you've been following the newspaper for a while, he's put several. I'm gonna refer to him as a he, but has put a number of projects all over. Some in London and some everywhere. But people, they're extremely valuable, and so people will tend to steal them very quickly, or grab them or whatever. So just for an example. And then I'm going to just talk for a few minutes about the museum and stuff, and then I'm going to actually give you guys a little bit of a walk around. I thought that it would be a little more interesting to actually see some of the stuff the way that we have it laid out here. The museum is, like I said, 167 replicas. We had 9 street artists come over from Europe we've been here for about 2 years, almost 2 years. And in the 2 years, we've had over 200,000 people in our little museum, and about 350 school groups from all over the world actually have come here. So we've had a good little turnout here, and there's been a lot of interest in street art and in Banksy specifically. But you have to remember one thing, Banksy is probably one of the most famous artists in the world, and he's anonymous, and he is also probably one of the wealthiest artists in the world, and he owns no copyrights over any of the material that he has. So it's kind of an anomaly, and one of the things that we stress around here is that everything that you think is normal with the Banksy is not normal. And the things that we assume in art, all the things that we assume about giving art value and giving and where art should be placed and who's important and stuff, it doesn't mean anything to us, because here the artist himself has actually never said specifically what a certain piece means. So our attitude here is that if the artist himself has never said what a specific piece or his intentions or anything like that mean, then who am I to tell you what this means? So what we try to do here is we try to have what we call 167 blind dates. We want you to have your own experience with it and your own reactions to it. And that's as important or more important, because that's what kind of makes our museum here a little unusual in that sense. And so I'm not here I can give you context. I can tell you about when it was done and how it was done and all sorts of things about the technical aspects of it. But the actual intent of each piece is not something that we project onto it, and we let the individual people that come to the museum have that. And just for an example, the last time I went to the Louvre and I saw the Mona Lisa, it occurred to me that I wasn't actually seeing the Mona Lisa, but in a lot of ways I was seeing what people were telling me about the Mona Lisa, and I remember this, and it looks a little smaller than I thought, and this and that. So I come to the table with all sorts of preconceived ideas on what I think this piece should be. And so then it kind of interferes with having the direct relationship with the piece itself. So that's kind of our goal here. Now, I will tell you that in New York City, just a little bit of history, and I'm going to take you upstairs in a second, a little bit of history. In 2013, there were 30 pieces done by actually one every day for a month that was done in New York City. Out of the 30 pieces that he put in New York City at that point, and that was 13 years ago, there's only one that exists, and that's the Hammer Boy, which is on the corner of 79th Street and Broadway, between Broadway and Amsterdam. And if you go to the Museum of Natural, if you come out of the subway at 79th Street, it's sitting right there. You can't miss it. And the story of the reason why that the reason why it was preserved was that the guys over at Zabar's, which many of them you I'm sure have been to, is right around the corner. They saw how many people were lined up taking pictures of it, and they said, "Aha, this is a good tourist attraction." So they took the sneeze guard off their deli and ran over and put plastic over the top of it and nailed it down there. And then, of course, put a big Zabar sign on top of it. So every time you take a picture, you see Zabars on it. So it was a little bit of entrepreneurial work on the Zabar's part, which is kind of a funny experience. And then there was one that was done in a well, I'll just say it. It was done at the Hustler Club, and that one still exists. It was just over on the West Side Highway, and it was on a pull-down grate. And that pull-down grate was pulled off and is now in storage in Connecticut. And hopefully in the next week or so, I've been talking to the people that own the Hustler Club. They're not in the business of taking care of art pieces. They just put it in some place in Connecticut. So hopefully in the next few weeks, I'm going to get up to a chance to see it and actually see what kind of shape it's in. And then the third one that was around was out in Coney Island on the side of a bodega. It was a robot with a barcode. And so last summer I went out to the bodega out in Coney Island to get some pictures of it and see what kind of shape it was in. And sure enough, the bodega owner said to me, he said, you missed it by 2 weeks. And I said, well, what are you talking about? He says, well, they took it. So it turns out that an actual crane came and took the entire wall out of the side of the bodega and pulled the thing out. And now apparently it's sitting in a gallery up in Connecticut. So some collectors bought the side of an entire building and moved it up there. And so now it's just painted over, and it's. But that's the thing, is that a lot of the Banksy's works are, like I said, incredibly valuable. And the last one that I know of went for about $6.1 million, the last one. But anyway, so that's kind of the general outlook on the place. But I'm going to give you a little walking tour. We're going to take, and hopefully nobody will get sick as I'm going to walk around here, but I'll try and be as careful as possible here. So, all right, so I'm going to flip you guys around. Right. And here we go. This is our main room. This is a room where we run movies. Actually, Exit Through the Gift Shop is going to be playing this afternoon. But we run Banksy movies on Mondays. So I'm going to turn around here. And also, just so you know, if you've come on Saturdays and Sundays from 1 to 3 p.m., we run stencil classes. And you can see the stencil work has been done more on the, I think has been done more on the tables than it actually has. And there's Berkeley walking by, and let's see some examples of the station. So we're going to head upstairs and follow along, following Berkeley. It's here. Seeing if you want to get your picture taken, and the girl with the big fan here. So we'll take that up. All right. So heading upstairs. All right. All right. Here we are. Now, one of the things that I want to tell you about just in general, I hope you guys can hear me. What we decided to do with the museum is divide it into sections. And this is what we call our section up here is from the England. Now, for those of you who don't know, Banksy as an artist started in about the mid 2000s, or I'm sorry, mid 1990s. And over the course, and so that's 30 years of creating pieces that are on the wall or on anywhere else. Now, if you notice, one of the things that we did with our artists was that we tried to recreate exactly the material that you would see if you were walking down the street and could see these things. Now, this piece has been recently destroyed, but in the same way, we tried to get the exact same effect and do it as authentically as possible so that you could see the work and how it interacts with the various backgrounds and stuff. So this area is our England area, which then takes us over, which is over the course. Banksy's, like I said, started in the mid 1990s. He was a street artist that was arrested all in England at that point. There were dozens and dozens of roundups, they would call them. And what happened was that in every one of the roundups, they were arresting the street artists constantly. And so what ended up happening is that they all make up names And one of the names that came out of the arrest was Banksy. And that's where the actual term came from. There's nobody named Banksy, as I mentioned, it's just his thing. So I'm going to walk you through here kind of quickly, and then we'll take some questions. But this is the entire area that we have devoted towards all of the pieces that were done. Now, you realize this is a very small spattering of them because essentially this Banksy's been working over 3 decades, so there's hundreds and hundreds of pieces. So we had to make some decisions on which ones would be in here. But basically, we have it divided up from England. We have it over in Paris, over in Palestine, and United States, and around New York and stuff. So now keep one thing in mind as we're sort of walking around here. Every one of these paintings, every one of them, was done in one night. One night, and that was because he works in stencils. And remember, there's warrants out for his arrest, and they have to work very, very quickly. So he developed a very quick stencil work. But as you can see, some of the work is very simple, and some of it is extremely complex. And it's actually quite amazing when you really get to think about how many stencils had to be working on this thing, and how many people. Well, I think, and that's what we were saying, is that how many people actually had to work on these things. I'll tell you a little story though. When we first started the museum, and we bought anonymous street artists to work on this thing, it took them 5 months to create all the pieces here. And then the 5 months, when they first showed up, and they opened up their bags, and they saw an awful lot of stencils that looked like the originals. So I'm not going to say it, but if it seems pretty clear that we actually hired some of Banksy's people, or for all I know, I hired Banksy directly. So anyway, so you can see there's a lot of pieces that we've tried to recreate exactly, like you said, the brickwork, so that you can actually see this kind of fun stuff. So anyway, this of course is one of my favorites. Now, we also have a number of these pieces that were done originally on the walls or on the side of the buildings or whatever. But this one, some of them were actually done for frames. Or what he does is that he takes pieces that were originally done on the walls and then creates wall hanging units. I'm sorry, I'm skipping words here. All right. And that's one of his most famous ones. We'll take you around to the people are having fun here. So I'm going to take you back here into this section. This is what we call our Kate Moss section, because one of the things that Banksy did also is copy other artists and also use themes from Andy Warhol and from some of the other famous street artists here. But this one I want to bring out to you just in particular, because one of the things that we did was we recreated as closely to the damage that you would see originally on these. And so you can see how we tried to recreate. We're just walking by, so we're going to take a walk into our rat section. Now, one of the things about there you go. Good quote. He's always a big supporter of of people that basically society throws away. Prostitutes, drug addicts, any migrant groups that are being trounced on and stuff. And so one of Banksy's things that he always feels very strongly about.
You're breaking up, William.
At the museum, we support 3 of Banksy's charities. Every month we send them money, and they're all migrant charities. One of them is a battered women's shelter in Greece, and 2 of them are for emergency help for migrants that are coming into England and stuff. So we give, that's where most of the profits from here go to those things. So here we go. So we're going to take you around to Paris. All exciting music. Now, once again, I want you to keep one thing in mind here. This was all done one night. And you see the complexity of the stencil work and the complexity of the work around this is absolutely astounding. And like I said, it took us 9 guys, 5 months to do this. And this, of course, I'm going to show you my favorite, one of my favorite in the world here is the recreation. Now, you also understand These, you never think about it, but people have to take a break every so often, right? So anyway, a little walk around here. Now this once again is our is our New York section, and this was the one. This is a recreation of the what I was talking about before, the robot with the barcode, and this was on the side of the bodega, and that was completely pulled off on the wall. And here is our this. Oh, this is the one with the side of the. This was the one at the Hustler Club that was pulled out and it's on the grating outside. And this is the one I'm going to go see up in Connecticut. And then over here, aha, the Hammer Boy. And that's the only one in New York that you can actually see, which is on the, as I said, on the corner of 79th and Amsterdam. 79th between Amsterdam and Broadway. And then I'm going to take you around. This is all having to do with New York City. And then you're going to, it's one of my favorite ones, of course. How can you argue with that? and, and I'll take you around. Okay, so now we're going to take you into a large part here. And this is what we call our migrant room. And of course, the most famous migrant of them all, who couldn't get into the United States nowadays, but old Steve Jobs was on there. Now, one thing I do want you to take a peek at is up here. I met all of the artists that did this on the side of the buildings all around here. We're actually surrounded by street art, tremendous street art. And so the street art was done here. I met the guy that actually did that. And he said that he had to take 6 months of mountaineering classes because if he had to hang off the side of the building on a rope. That's a heck of a way to do things. All right, so I'll take you around over to here. Give you a little tour of them back here. And you can see a lot of pieces, and some of his most famous pieces, right over here is, oh, shoot. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is one of the most famous pieces, and there we go. Still, okay. Everybody still see me? Great. Good. Okay.
I think we should go to questions, William, if there are a couple of questions.
Sure. I'm going to just buzz around down here. I'm just going to run. This is our whole Palestinian section. Oh, I do want to say one of the things that, can you still see okay? Can you still see okay?
No, we don't see what you're
Okay,
showing.
hang on a second. Okay. Okay, how's that? Yes, no?
We see his name, that's all we see. We see your fingers.
Now we can see. Wait, how come? Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Now we can hear you. Oh, William, you're on mute again.
Mute. Okay. I don't know if you can see me now. Oh, this is such a drag. I am so sorry. Anyway.
Now you're good.
Okay. All right. Hang on just 1 second. I apologize tremendously. Oh. Oh, brother. Okay. Oh.
So,
Recording in progress.
All
are
right.
there any questions for William Mead? No questions? Well, thank you so much, William. Oh, Cecilia, he sees Cecilia.
There we go. All right. So I am so sorry. We had a little connection problem up there, but it kind of gives you a sense of the museum and a sense of what we're doing here and stuff. But certainly any questions? I'm probably opened up a lot of questions.
Celia,
I don't think you told us where this museum is.
We are on the corner of Canal Street and Broadway. We are open 7 days a week. 10 hour, we open at 10 and close at 8 every day. So it's accessible by every single subway. We have the W, which is right in the building underneath us. The 6 train is right over there. The 1, 2, 3 are 2 blocks over, and the A train is all the. So Canal Street, we're in the center of a lot of things going on right now. Unfortunately, we had a lot of ICE action around us. We've had a lot of problems with the police. I mean, it's because City Hall is right around the corner here, so we get demonstrations here and up and day. But all good. Everything's it's like I said, very accessible, and we're wheelchair accessible. We have elevators and stuff. So anybody wants to come and visit, you can certainly get around and stuff. Yes.
And Save Ours has made a poster of that Banksy with its name on it.
Yes, well, originally what happened is that there was a little entrepreneur on their side. So they said, okay, we're going to they have the plastic and then they put their name on there. But then now it's been 13 years since it was put up. And so what they did was eventually it kind of like they changed a few times. And then we were up there about a month or so ago, and a guy came up to us and he said, I've been taking care of this piece here for years and nobody ever gives me any credit. And I thought it was kind of fun. He says, I keep it, he goes out there every day and makes sure that it's clean and make sure that there's no stickers on it and everything. I said, oh, yeah. So, and then apparently had a piece written in New York Magazine about him and something like that. So yes, that's the one that's still up there. It's the only one you can still see.
Annie?
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Annie Friedman, for inviting me to this event. It's so beautiful. I didn't expect it to be so great. Quick question to William. You show some pieces in Louvre in France. If I'm in Paris, can I find some of these pieces you show for the Louvre part? Can
Oh,
I?
well, it's actually, I will tell you, I was just over in Paris a little ago. First of all, my partner has a sister museum in Paris. And so you can go to the Banksy Museum in Paris, but also there are a number, I think there's about 10 or 11 ones that are on the streets in Paris. And for whatever reason, the Parisians let the art alone. When the art is here on the streets in New York, it gets snapped up pretty quickly.
So there are pieces in
Oh
the
yes,
Louvre.
you can definitely see. Yeah, definitely.
How about the museum here? Is it free if I want to see? Or
It's actually, we have reduced, we see, the thing is, the one thing about this place is that we're not supported by any foundation or any sponsors or by the city or anything. So we keep our lights open by what comes in through the front door.
okay,
So we have reduced prices, and
fair enough.
if you say you came to this, I'll even give you more reduced prices.
Oh, okay. Very
Just
Thank
let
you.
us know. Let us know you were on this thing. I'll tell the guys at the front desk to be on the look.
Okay.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
We have Francis Tome and then Marcia, and then we'll move the agenda.
Next.
Francis.
Okay. He is a street artist. How can you tell or be sure that he actually is doing the artwork?
Okay,
Because somebody can be copying him.
there's a couple things. Hang on. We're about to start our movie here. So let me real. What it is that he has this website called Pest Control. Now, Pest Control is starting the after we played 3 movies on Mondays. We have movie night, we have free drink night, and all sorts of different activities that we got going on here. But the the website called Pest Control is a way for you to, since he doesn't have any copyrights, the only way to authenticate something is go right to him. It's called PEST Control, Pest Control. And if you found something on the street that you think is an original or you think that is a Banksy work, you can just write them, send them some pictures, and they'll authenticate it. And that's been our that's been one of our connections with these guys. And so, any other questions?
Marcia Newfield.
In New York City, how can you not know who he is? I mean, everything comes out. I don't understand that. Is it one person? Is it a collective? I don't believe that he's unknown.
I got to tell you something. You have hit on what drives everybody out of their minds. Now, just think of one thing, okay? Now, if you go in the news, and we have some of the, I'm sorry we got disconnected, but just a few weeks ago, he put a piece on the side of the House of Lords in London. Now, if you know the House of Lords, it's essentially like the Capitol building of England. He managed to get to there, put an entire piece on it, and never got discovered. And the next day they come out and say, "Oh, what happened here?" So then what happens is that so often when society can't control the message, they demonize the messenger. So they say, "Oh, he's doing graffiti, he's vandalizing." So they had a poor guy sit out there and try and scrape off the whole his picture out of it. And it's on YouTube, it's on the internet and everything. And he ended up erasing it, and it looks almost, I think, more interesting now that it's kind of, you see the kind of the outline of it. But the amazing thing is, and you hit right on the head, I can't walk across the street without getting my picture taken. I can't drive my car has been towed a few times over the course of my life because but the thing about it is that, and this is why a group of people working together, looking out for each other, makes the most amount of sense, because they have people looking out for you. They make these things happen. But how did he get on the House of Lords? How did he get last summer he had an entire group of people, entire group of pieces that he put on the London Zoo. And they walked out of there, they're all over the place. So I mean, that's part of the interest. I mean, part of the fascinating thing of everything is that, personally, I don't want to know who he is. And I'm also, I think it's, as I said, we always want to know everything about everybody, but this time I kind of like, here's one guy in our lifetimes that has not been, I mean, yes, there are people that know he is, but in terms of he'll never come out. First of all, one of the reasons is that he'd be arrested because there's so many warrants out for him, because he's put so many things on the side of buildings and stuff, and what they call vandalize them. But on the other hand, I think that it only adds to the mystery, adds to the intrigue, and I think it's actually much more fun because you, as I said, you kind of have more of a connection to the piece when you're not thinking about the artist and stuff, and you don't have all that like Picasso's blue period and this period and Renoir's this period and this period. So this way you're actually kind of like, I'm just saying is that out of 167 pieces, people come out of here crying. We've had people from all over the world come here where they've seen some of these pieces. We had a couple that came from now, and I'll just say this as a quick thing. In 2022, Banksy, as an activist artist, went into the Ukraine and started putting up his artwork on the side of bombed out buildings. And you think about it, it's really quite something that an artist will go into a conflict, put up building and put stuff on the side of the buildings, even though he knows that it would be destroyed, or the next, it could be gone in a week or so. So, I mean, he's very he walks the walk and talks the talk. I mean, I got a lot of respect for the whole firm. So that's kind of the long, short answer.
Thank you, William. So the address is in the chat, 277 Canal Street.
Corner of Broadway. And the amazing thing is that there are, I'm going to pitch the area. It's a very interesting area down here now, but there's tremendous restaurants right around the corner. And and my wife spends $500 every time she goes shopping down here, which drives me crazy because there's so many clothing stores and there's pop-ups everywhere and stuff. So it's kind of a fun, fascinating area down here.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming today and taking time out of your very busy schedule.
I'm sorry so much that it was discombobulated, but at least you got a little taste for the place.
We did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're a little behind, but that's okay. Susan Chevlo, PhD, is next. Susan is Chief Curator and Museum Director of the Derfner Judaica Museum and Art Collection at the Hebrew Home in Riverdale in the Bronx. She served as an assistant professor in Jewish art and visual culture at the Jewish Theological Seminary And before coming to Defner, Susan was associate curator at the Jewish Museum here in New York. And she received her PhD in art history from the Grad Center in CUNY. Okay, Susan, take it away. We can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
There I go. Okay, so happy to be here. Thank you, Robert Nelson, for having invited me. I'm just going to share my screen. So let me see. Okay, you should be able to see it now. And let me just, I'm going to fix my view here. All right, I don't think I'm going to be able to fix my view. I can see some of you on the screen, but not everyone. And thank you. I really enjoyed that presentation. Everyone had a lot of fun with that. And also, I know Victoria left. But that was so interesting about Alice Austin House, a place that I also have not been to yet. Okay. So I'm going to start with this. So we are the Dürfner Judaica Museum and Art Collection, and we are based at the Hebrew Home at Riverdale. This is the two views of the Hebrew Home River Spring Living campus in Riverdale in the Northwest Bronx. We're right on the Yonkers border. So you see there our campus with all of these buildings, and we also, so that's the view facing east at the top, and on the bottom is a view facing west. We have a big sculpture garden on overlooking the Hudson River and Palisades. So that's just to situate ourselves, and I'll tell you a little bit about our history. And I did wanted to time myself. So I just hit the timer on my phone. So the Judaica Museum of the Hebrew Home was founded more than 40 years ago in 1982 when Riverdale residents Ralph and Luba Baum, who you see here on the left, donated their collection of 800 Jewish ceremonial objects to the home. A refugee from Nazi persecution, Ralph Baum and his wife Luba had an intense desire to preserve and pass on to future generations the memory embodied in the objects they collected, many of which were used by European Jews before the Holocaust. And so the Baums collected their many treasures during their travels, as well as from auctions and antique dealers in the United States, the Netherlands, and Israel, and other places. So on the image on the right, we're looking at the cover of an early brochure about the collection, and you can see how the museum looked when it opened in a space originally located on the 5th floor of what is today Riverwalk, the Hebrew Home's independent living apartments. This is what we look like today. So you see on the right, the exterior entrance to the museum with the sculpture River Spirit by Joel Perlman, and on the left, the interior of the Dürfner Judaica Museum. So we reopened in this space in 2009 after the museum was named for our benefactors, Helen and Harold Dürfner. I'm going to just go through some highlights from the collection because I have a very short time. On the left is a postcard of the Bezalel School of Arts and Crafts in Jerusalem, and on the right is a Hanukkah lamp from the Bezalel School that's dated circa 1920, 1929. So the exhibition begins with objects from the Bezalel School of Arts and Crafts, which was founded in Jerusalem in 1906. And these were objects that Ralph and Luba collected, and that they had a great deal of foresight in collecting these objects that are highly valued and highly sought after today. The Bezalel School was founded by Boris Schatz, who had been a professor at the National School of Fine Art in Sofia, Bulgaria, before he came to Jerusalem. He encouraged artists to seek inspiration from their national cultural heritage and folk art traditions, and he believed that art should fulfill a moral, educational, and national role, and that shaped his vision for Bezalel. The school itself is named after the biblical craftsman who's referenced in the Bible. This is a Kiddush cup, and here in this Kiddush cup, which also exemplifies the Damascene style. This is the Damascene style, which we see here. The Damascene style is a technique of interlacing, which I'll explain in a moment. But here you see first this kind of calligraphic calligraphy, this calligraphy on the left. This is spelling out Betzalel in this very stylized calligraphy on the left. It's two views of the same cup turned around. The Damascene is a form of inlay in which lines or areas in a metal surface are chiseled away and different types of metal are affixed to the surface. So the works from Betzalel range from this kind of late 19th century kind of pastiche styling to very modernist works like this Hanukkah lamp by Ludwig Yehuda Volpert that we see in this slide. So for financial reasons, Betzalel closed in 1929. When it reopened in 1935 as the new Betzalel School of Arts and Crafts, its focus shifted to a modernist aesthetic, such as that represented by Wolpert, whose Hanukkah lamp, again from the 1950s, you see here. And Wolpert had been influenced by the Bauhaus, an arts and crafts school founded in Germany in 1919. He taught at Betzalel after immigrating to Jerusalem from Berlin in 1933. And then he came to the United States in 1956 and had an enormous influence on the continued stylistic development of Jewish ceremonial art in the post-war period in the United States. He worked for many years at the Toby Pasher Workshop at the Jewish Museum on Fifth Avenue and 92nd Street, creating ritual objects and synagogue furnishings. In this view of the interior museum, you see a Torah scroll in the case. This was a Torah scroll that was salvaged from the Elmshorn Synagogue in Ralph Baum, our founder's hometown. And it is believed that only one of the 13 Torah scrolls owned by the Elmshorn congregation was saved, although it was severely damaged after the synagogue was set on fire during Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass in November 1938, when Jewish homes, businesses, and places of worship were vandalized and destroyed in organized attacks throughout Austria and Germany. In 1953, on a trip to Elmshorn, Ralph was given this burnt Torah scroll, which had been kept in storage at the local police station since that night, and it became the inspiration for his efforts to salvage remnants of European Jewish material culture by collecting many of the objects that are now on view in our museum. These are two more Hanukkah lamps, again, showing the contrast and range of styles and historical periods of objects in the collection, one of the earliest Hanukkah lamps in our collection, from circa 1750, 1760 from Frankfurt, Germany. And on the right, another Hanukkah lamp designed by Volpert, originally designed in Palestine in 1939 and manufactured in the 1970s. Let's see. So the lamp on the left, it has a pierced back plate, and based on research that was done by my former colleague from the Jewish Museum in New York, Susan Braunstein, it's known that it reflects a style that was very popular in Germany in the second half of the 18th century and the early 19th century. It's called a bench lamp because it has a bench. I don't have the laser pointer. Let's see if I can get the laser pointer real quick. Okay. This is like a bench with a flap that would open up, and it's an oil lamp. So oil would be put into different like depressions within here and little wicks, and it could be lit for each of the nights of Hanukkah. And the Hebrew calligraphy, I just want to point that on the Volpert, that he was very much known for integrating Hebrew calligraphy into his designs, and it's very characteristic of his style. Now, I don't know if anyone knows, there's a Jewish holiday that starts tonight. It is called Purim. See some nodding. So this is a Purim scroll, or a scroll of Esther. It dates from the 1920s. It's printed, but then it's hand colored. It was designed by Shmuel Ben David. He was a Bulgarian artist who moved to Jerusalem. He followed basically Boris Schatz to Jerusalem to the Bezalel school. So, like I said, the holiday begins tonight. It commemorates the it commemorates events in the 5th century before the Common Era, when the Jews of ancient Persia were saved from destruction. And the scroll of Esther, read in the synagogue tonight, it describes how Haman, the powerful and vengeful advisor in King Ahasuerus' royal court, plotted to kill the Jews on a day selected by lots, and they're saved by Queen Esther. And I have details. So that's the whole scroll unrolled at the top of the screen. And it's a little pixelated because I enlarged it, but the detail here shows just 2 details from the scroll, and it's showing Mordecai here on the horse. He's Esther's cousin. He's being honored. And then here we see Haman and his 10 sons being hanged in the desert. And there's a jackal here waiting to scavenge their remains. This is another beautiful object associated with a holiday that'll be coming up in just another few weeks. It's a matzah bag. It's from a girls' orphan home in Jerusalem in circa 1910. So it's velvet embroidered with metallic thread and couched fish scales. So used during the Passover holiday, which commemorates the Exodus from Egypt. It's a blue velvet 3-pocket matzah bag. It's all edged here. These are all the silver threads that it's edged with, and it's decorated with floral and animal motifs that are executed in fish scale embroidery. So every little part of the design here, it's fish scales. And if you think of what they look like, right? Once they're all clean and everything, they're very shiny, and they mimic pearls. They mimic like that opalescent surface of pearls. So across many different cultures and in many different uses, we see fish scales used in embroidery. It was something that I learned when I came here 17 years ago, and it's become one of my favorite objects in the collection. This is a decalogue. I'm just looking at time. This is a decalogue that was brought to the Hebrew home at Riverdale up here in 1951 from the original Hebrew home, which was called the Hebrew Home for the Aged in Harlem. So the Hebrew Home for the Aged in Harlem started out, it opened up as a shelter for elderly Jews in a synagogue called Beit HaMidrash HaGadol of Harlem on East 105th Street. So it was originally a synagogue, and they bought these brownstones that were attached. And by the late 1940s, the things were really falling apart, and the whole area got earmarked for urban renewal. So none of those buildings exist there anymore. It's actually a lot of NYCHA housing today. Anyway, the Hebrew home moved up here in 1951, and this came from the original synagogue. It's a decalogue that would have sat above a Torah ark. So we see a pair of rampant lions flanking the 10 Commandments. This is a frequent motif on Torah arks since the 3rd century of the Common Era, and it was very commonly found in American synagogues. The craftsmen who did the literal wood carving to make this object would have been trained Eastern European wood carvers who immigrated to the United States. And many of them were also employed to carve the animals, but mostly the horses. If you can imagine the carousels from the turn of the century, those Eastern European wood carvers were often employed to carve those carousel horses. And thousands of those were made between, they say, 1890 and 1930. This is the interior of the museum with I wanted to point out here this Torah teak from Tunisia from the early 20th century. It's carved and wood painted. It's a type of container for Torah scrolls that is found in Jewish communities in North Africa and other countries where Jews live, from Iran to India. And these can be wood, they can be metal, they can be fabric and metal. And we have three really beautiful ones. That's actually another painted one in the back here. I don't want to go too much over my time, so I'm going to be conscious of that. This is showing a display of Torah ornaments, including an 18th century Torah arc valance up here, and then our changing exhibition space with my colleague standing there. And I wanted to show you our changing exhibition space. This is where we'll do changing exhibitions. They can be on Jewish themes, they can be group exhibitions or solo exhibitions. We have about 2 new exhibitions a year. This is a current installation view of Envisioning the Sacred Modern Art from the collection, which just opened yesterday. It'll be up through June 21st. It includes 49 works by 21 artists in a range of modernist styles, including Marc Chagall, Mark Podwell, Abraham Ratner, Ben Zion, Jane Logeman, Joyce Weinstein, and many others. And in it, the artists explore the Bible, represent Jewish observances and traditions, or take inspiration from language and legend. Now, in addition to this space, which we call the Judaic Museum, we have the art collection. And the art collection has its own history. Those works were given over a period of time since the late 1960s separately from the Jewish objects. So they include outdoor sculpture like this large work by Herbert Ferber, a sculptor who is associated with the abstract expressionist movement. We are the only sculpture garden in the Bronx. We have 47 outdoor sculptures in the collection. And that's my timer, but I'm going to give myself another minute or two. Sorry. We have Andy Warhol series, 10 Portraits of Jews of the 20th Century. It's a screen print series. This is an installation view of it. And in this view, you can see Gertrude Stein here on the left. Louis Brandeis. This is not so clear, but we've had Franz Kafka and Albert Einstein next, and of course, Sarah Bernhardt, which I pulled out to show here on the right. Like all of Warhol's portraits, the silkscreen process draws attention to the tension between the subject and their representation. We're very happy to have those in the collection. And then we have Pablo Picasso's series, Imaginary Portraits, done in 1969, toward the end of his life. This lithograph series. And I just have 2 more slides. This is Romare Bearden's Queen of the Blue Sea. It's varnished fabrics, paper collage, ink, and acrylic on paper. Bearden experimented with many different mediums and artistic styles, but is best known for these richly textured collages. He had so many influences on his work, ranging from Western masters like Duccio and Giotto to Cezanne, Picasso, Matisse, as well as African art, particularly sculptures, masks, textiles, Byzantine mosaics, Japanese prints, Chinese landscapes painting. So all of these influences come together in a work like this to create this character that emerges from his personal mythology, celebrating African American culture and history. And then the very last work I want to show you is Joan Mitchell's Flower, one from Bedford, a very large lithograph by one of the most important and well-known woman artists associated with the abstract expressionist movement. And she showed in the important pivotal 9th Street show in 1951, which really launched abstract expressionism. And her work is characterized by those essential qualities of the movement: pure abstraction, color, and spontaneity. We are open to the public. We are free. We are here Sunday through Thursday, 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And our website, which has lots of information about us, is just www.derfner.org. So thank you for allowing me to share all this with you.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any questions for Susan? David Kovalchuk.
I had relatives in Hebrew Home over the years, but I never saw the Dörfner Museum. And it's a big institution, many buildings. Where, when you enter the complex near Resnick Hall, how do you get to the Dörfner Museum?
Right.
Where
Yeah.
is it?
So we're on the main floor of the Jacob Reingold Pavilion, which is adjacent to Resnick.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Susan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See any other hands? We have one more presentation, and hopefully we'll have time to bring in Heather James. Okay, Hua Huang. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Hello, everyone. Yes, that's correct. So let me share my
Let me,
screen. I'm
let
going to
me
be
tell
sensitive
people,
to everyone's time because I know it's going a bit longer than everyone anticipated. So let me see if I can be quick here.
yeah, Hua Huang is the Director of Communications of the Queens County Farm Museum. He oversees all external, internal communications, as well as upkeep for their sites, partnerships, and digital presence. Okay, Hua.
Hey, everybody. I'm Hua. I just want to present you guys with a quick overview of what the farm has to offer. We're located in Floral Park, Queens, and we are free to enter. We're open 10 to 5 every day, and there's also free parking on site. So the Queens County Farm Museum it's the last actively working farmland in New York City. We're located in Queens, and we've been actively farming this land for over 328 years. This year actually is our 50th year of being an institution, of being a museum here at the farm. And so similar to the Alice Austin House, we also have a historic house. It's called the Adrian's Farmhouse, and we have free um, walkthroughs every weekend where our educators can teach you a lot about colonial life and how life was back then in New York City's more farm-centric, agriculture-centric time. Um, Here we go. So you can see here, let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys. Here is our historic barn with one of our old historic tractors. This is where I am. I'm right here, if you can see that. And here in the middle is our Adrian's farmhouse with our historic windmill. In the past, the folks who lived here, the Adrianses, used the windmill to pull water up from the ground, but that is no longer functioning. They had a herb garden over here in the back. And here is our farm store where you can buy a lot of locally created goods. And we also sell our vegetables here at the farm as well. Again, we're actively farmed. So here, there we go here. The farmland that we are actively working on is, in fact, the homeland of the Matinecock Indians, who are the indigenous people of this site. And we pay respect to a lot of the people, the enslaved people who worked here at the farm over the many, many years in which the farm has exchanged hands throughout the many families that own this property. And so I just want to make a note of that here. Let me be a bit quicker here. So what we offer is we have big events year round. We have educational programming. We sell our eggs on site every day. And even though we open at 10, we have a line in the morning at around 9 a.m. every morning just to wait because people want fresh eggs, right? And in the warmer seasons from around June to November, we sell our produce as well. Again, we're free entry. We offer hay rides for $6 a person, and we can also sell you animal feed. And when we do the Q&A, I'm going to walk out there and show you some of our animals. So here are some of the animals that we have. We have alpaca, and we have sheep. And here's a picture of the hay rides that we offer. And here is a picture of our sheep shearing event. Here's a picture of our agricultural fair event in which we have a bunch of performers. Here's an event in which we invite Matinecock Indians, and it's called a powwow. We have a large bonfire in the middle, and we also have carnival rides here as well, which is starting up in April, I believe. Here's a summer camp that we run every summer. We also have a corn maze here at the farm in the fall. And here are more pictures of kids enjoying some field trips and educational activities here at the farm. Again, we also host a farm stand every season. We not only source local farms that are upstate, but also Long Island, but the majority of our farm stand is farmed, picked, and packaged freshly on site every day. Here's an example of what you can find here. This is all of our produce.
Wow.
And like I said, here are our chickens, and here are the eggs that we produce on the farm as well. We have blue, white, and brown eggs. Yeah, I just want to make this really quick because I know I'm also running out of time. So I don't want to rush anything. But again, come visit when you can. I know we're a bit further out than most museums here in New York City. You're gonna have to take the Long Island Railroad to Floral Park and then walk up, or you can take an Uber out here, or I believe there are a couple of buses, I think the Q46 and the 44, I believe, that take you straight to the farm. But yeah, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Sure.
Susan?
Hi.
Hi, Susan.
I just wanted to make a comment because I'm from Queens.
Mhm.
I don't live there now, but when I had my children, we lived
Mhm.
in Queens and I
Mhm.
used to take them to the farm museum. Do you still do a corn maze?
We
It's just
do.
it's a
We do
really,
still do
really
recordings.
wonderful place. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you for vouching for us, Susan. Thank you. Francine,
Hey,
How many chickens do you have for all
we
these
have
eggs?
300 chickens.
All right.
Diane,
Yeah, hi. I've been lived in Queens my whole life. I never heard of this. Can you tell me what road gets me in there?
Little Neck Parkway.
Great. Thanks a lot.
We're over at Floral Park, which is the last zip code before we become Long Island. So like we're New York City, but you know, we're kind of stretching, you know? So
See you soon.
yes. Erwin?
Yeah, a lot of people have owned this land, as you said, since
Yes.
colonial times.
Yes.
Do you have a historical exhibits as well about the owners and the changing nature of the land over time?
Unfortunately, we do not. We have a timeline because we have the deeds, obviously, right? So we have a timeline for everyone who owned the farm. Initially, of course, it's called the Adrian's Farmhouse. So it was owned by Jacob and Catherine Adrians. They're the original people who worked the land, and they were the people who had slaves for the majority of the time that they were working here. And then after that, I believe it just passed from family to family. And up until I think this is the 50-year anniversary, so I would say 1970s. I believe our current board president, James Trent, founded organization to help preserve and keep the house from being destroyed because the city wanted the farmland to be renovated and buildings to be built here, of course, right? So that's why we're kept as a historic house, similar to Adrian's house. We're part of the Historic House Trust in New York City. And yeah,
Okay, thanks.
thank
no
you.
problem. And Marcia?
Marcia?
Okay, I wondered how many people work on the farm and how do you get them? Are they permanent residents or do you get them in as volunteers from the neighborhood? All of
Mhm.
that. How do you
So,
train them?
we have around 4 seasonal farmers. Of course, we have farmers that come in from Long Island, also from upstate, and we have staff here. For example, I come from Queens, but I used to live in Staten Island, so I would commute all the way from Staten Island every day to come work at the farm. But in terms of farmers and livestock workers, they just come from the area. And of course, we're a nonprofit, so we do rely a lot on volunteers who come help and pick the crops as well.
So how many people altogether does it take to create all that produce?
You wouldn't believe it, but it's 5.
Wow.
Yeah. And they
And
work very, very hard.
and you teach do you teach farming to various groups,
Yeah,
educational
exactly.
groups?
Yeah, so we have around, I would say, 2,000 school field trips every year. We see like an average of 500,000 visitors here every year, just like generally. And one big part of the educational experience is we teach a lot about how agriculture, where our food comes from, respect for the land. We are a no-till farming zone, and we obviously are naturally grown. We use no insecticides, no pesticides, no nothing. Everything's natural here.
Oh,
And yeah,
that's beautiful. So are you affiliated with any of the CUNY museums, of the CUNY schools? Because some of the schools, like Brooklyn or one of them, they have their own farm as well. Is that
Mhm.
different from you or what?
Yeah, I believe so. I know we collaborate with a lot of high schools in Queens because they bring their school groups here. But as we worked with them throughout the years, they now bring a lot of the kids here to volunteer for us as well.
It's great.
Hmm. And I do, before, if there's no other questions, I'm going to run out actually on my phone with me here. Let me see if I can.
You're going to show us the farm
Yes, I'm gonna show you some of the animals.
animals.
Uh, what's it called? Can you make my other account a host so I can be front and center?
You should have been made a host.
I logged onto two accounts so I can use my phone here. So it should be the same
Let
name.
me see. Okay, I got you. Cool.
Okay, now
Hope you
you're
guys can see me here.
Not yet.
Here are some of our alpacas.
Ah,
And of course, they're very friendly.
the
Hi.
oh, how cute.
Hello. And right up to you, just like now, because they think you have food.
right.
Get food.
You can see our sheep in the back there. Hopefully, you guys can see all that. Here are some of our goats. Hey, buddy.
What are those?
Here are some of our pigs. And I would love to show you guys the chickens, but they're in their coop right now because, as you can see, a lot of snow.
A lot of snow.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for taking time from your busy schedule to come and talk to us. Wow.
Thank you so much.
Well, that concludes our program on hidden gems. All the museums look fascinating, and I thank the speakers on behalf of the chapter. We're supposed to have Heather James talk about the legislative agenda, but I'm wondering if Heather is still here. She had a
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
you
here.
are. How
Yes,
she
I
does
can.
this? I don't know. You're gonna ice skate while you carrying your son, and you're gonna talk to us. Talk to us. This is Heather James, the PSC legislative representative.
Hi, thank you for having me. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
pick up my son soon, but budget talk is for everyone, so he can hear it too when he gets here. So I appreciate the opportunity. Really, really hard to follow though, like goats and alpacas. I cannot compete with that at all. But I really just want to go to Queens now, but I will try my best. I just wanted to run down a couple of ways that you can get involved at the city and state level with the legislative work, both the budget work and otherwise, since there's a lot going on right now. I'm going to put a lot of links into the chat so that, once I'm done speaking, you can always go there and hopefully choose the thing that interests you. The first thing I wanted to say is just that we went to Albany last week. We had some lobby meetings of our own, and then we were also part of a group of 1,500 people, almost 2,000 people actually, that went up and talked to legislators and held a rally about the need for fair taxation in this budget cycle. We know that the federal government has given away very large tax breaks to billionaires, and that will create a hole in the New York State budget. Not expected to feel it as much this year, but it is coming for us next year. And in order for us to get any of the advancements that we need for ourselves and for our students, we absolutely have to have new revenue. So we've been part of many groups, a big coalition, pushing for exactly that, for fair taxation. One of the groups that we've been working with is called Our Time. A member of our executive council, Susan Kang, is on their leadership team. I'm going to go ahead and put a link for Our Time into the chat. They are doing phone banks, both virtual and in person. and door-to-door canvassing in all 5 boroughs to try to gain support for the idea of fair taxation, for taxing the ultra wealthy and for taxing corporations, as well as for the state giving the city the ability to generate more taxes of its own, which is something that is potentially on the table this cycle. So if you're interested in that, there's also a petition that you can sign, and that is in the chat. I don't have a link to the second thing yet, but coming up most likely on March 12th, if you can pencil it in, is a rally outside of City Hall with CUNY Rising Alliance and our new City Council Higher Education Chair, Councilwoman Rita Joseph, to help kick off our city budget campaign. Rita Joseph is brand new to us. We had Eric Dinowitz as our chair for a while, but she is very active, really wanting to work with us in a closer way. And we're very excited to rally with her on City Hall. So I'll make sure that I send updates about that as I come. There is also a City Council Higher Education budget hearing on March 24th. And I'm putting the link to that into the chat. You can go and give testimony if you want, or if you would like to submit testimony about CUNY funding, you can also do that virtually. You do not have to actually attend. You can just submit written testimony. But that is, an important way for the council to hear our voice and for them to understand what we think is needed at the city level in the CUNY budget, right? And that may mean also making sure that some things are line items so that CUNY itself, administration, has less flexibility with the money. We have also been working with a team of folks who are part of the new CUNY Cares initiative on student housing. That team is working on a variety of issues, including an eviction legal defense clinic, a homelessness student initiative, a CUNY rental assistance fund, and a new CUNY Office of Housing Assistance. They have drafted some recommendations. If anyone here has housing expertise or has knowledge of student housing issues, I would love to put you in touch with the working group to whatever extent you're willing and available. There are progressive housing voices on the working group. An admin is also there. Some nonprofit partners are there, but I really think that it would be good to have more folks from the retiree chapter involved in this, just speaking to your experience when you were on campus, with student housing needs, because honestly, even if you've been retired for a while now, the housing situation, it has not changed. It's gotten worse. But we just really don't have the resources that we need for our students. And, particularly folks with some sort of policy expertise or, personal expertise in the area of housing in the city would be, I think, incredibly helpful to the working group. They asked me not to share their list of recommendations in such a huge group, but if you email me, I will send it to you directly. The reason being that they're still in draft and they don't want them leaking out and people saying oh my gosh, these are your final recommendations or whatever, but they really are looking for feedback from PSC folks. I also wanted to mention that City Council Bill 175 is something that exists. It's something that James recently sent out a message about, and something that the PSC has decided to publicly oppose. 175 is part of a package of anti-hate bills that Speaker Menon has moved forward, the new speaker. Of course, the PSC is anti-hate, that goes without saying. But this particular bill, it would require the police commissioner to develop and implement a plan to address and contain the risk of injury, intimidation, and interference at educational facilities in New York City. It does say that it would preserve and protect protest rights, but the plan would address these issues through the use of buffer zones at entrances to and exits from educational facilities, including all CUNY schools. And the commissioner would be required to submit a plan no later than 45 days after the bill's effective date. The New York City Police Department will come up with the final plan, which will be posted to its website. I'm happy to send the language of the bill itself. The PSC's, and I'll put the link in the chat. The PSC's concerns is that, we're not satisfied that it adequately protects the First Amendment rights of New Yorkers, including students, faculty, and staff. At our schools, our colleges, our universities, our teaching hospitals, and also the established educational perimeter could make it very difficult to protest anywhere near educational facilities, which in the city, schools are very near to everything. So, this could block out important public spaces, including Pace University is right across from City Hall. So I'm going to put the list of bill sponsors as well as the bill language actually into the chat. I'm doing that now. Sorry, my son just got here, my older one. And so if you go on here and you read it and you're concerned or you're interested, we're asking people to contact their city council member directly if they are a sponsor, and just talk to them about some of the concerns that you as a person may feel or that we as the PSC feel. Two more things, I promise. Thank you for your time. I'm almost done. The next one is Board of Trustees. So we are meeting with staff of Mayor Mamdani this week. There are 3 vacancies currently on the King Board of Trustees. The mayor has BOT appointment power. It's something that we often forget, but it does exist. And we really want Mamdani to use that appointment power to put someone there who is not a friend of the mayor, not just somebody's buddy, but who really, really supports higher education and supports CUNY in a deep and holistic philosophical way. So tomorrow is your last chance to make any recommendations that you may have for potential BOT appointees. I know some folks here have actually sent me a suggestions in the past. Oh, and I lied. Actually, that was the last thing. So we have a couple minutes before your meeting ends, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions for Heather? Well, what a rich program today. Thank you, Heather. Oh, I see Eileen. Eileen Moran.
Okay. Yeah, I'm old enough, and so many of the folks in the retiree chapter may also be old enough to remember when New York City did have the ability to tax itself, and what didn't have to get permission for everything from Albany. So if you can just spend 2 more minutes, Heather, and say a little bit more about what our hopes are in that arena. Thanks. And also, I think it would be very helpful if everything that went in the chat gets sent probably to Bonnie, because I think we have a larger list of retirees that are on email than are at this meeting, and then more of your message could get out. Thanks.
I don't know what happened. It looks like Heather lost her connection.
Well, she was breaking up a little bit before. Okay, so I can send her an email message, and hopefully she'll just send it back then. If she may be gone. She might be picking up her son.
Oh, she got her
Yeah.
son already, she said. Anyway, let's hear what the other questions are. Lorraine?
I was wondering about whether or not the legislative committee is supporting the New York Health Act, what its perspective is on the New York Act this year.
Okay.
Heather come back in, as far as I can tell.
Our next meeting, I believe, is on the New York Health Act, so we'll all learn about it then.
Yeah.
That will be in beginning of April.
Jen had just reported to us at the Social Safety Net about, the PSC's commitment to the New York Health Act. So I suspect it will actually come up on the legislative agenda. Unfortunately, I will not be at the next meeting because it's on St. Patrick's Day. So follow up.
Okay. Bruce Brown. Can't hear you, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks. Hi. So, I'd like to know more about this buffer zone instance that Heather was talking about, this buffer zone issue, about which she posted the Legislative Council post. I don't see in that post, in that website, any information about it. I missed James' discussion of it, and maybe I just got it and didn't see it, but I'd like to know more about it and how to find out more. Thanks.
Eileen, can you help with that? We can't hear you.
I would look for James's message, and I would suspect it's probably also on the PSC website.
Okay.
But if not, I'm going to follow up and mention to Heather what I had raised in the questions, but she was already gone. So I'm sure that the responses then can be shared with everyone, since again, we have many more retirees than can actually come on Mondays at 1 to 3 o'clock. So hopefully we'll get the message out more broadly and also answer the question you asked.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Heather
Marianne,
may be back. I see a message from her.
Oh,
what did you say? I didn't hear you, Bonnie.
I think Heather may be back.
No, I think she said
No.
she got kicked off of her. I don't know how she was
yeah,
talking.
yeah, because she said, apologies, my internet kicked me off.
Okay. Marianne, Peter?
So I know a little bit about the background of the buffer bill, excuse me. This was proposed in reaction to demonstrations at synagogues where there was a sale of land in the West Bank to people that were buying Palestinian land. So this idea from the city council is to create a buffer zone, first of all, around religious institutions and then around schools as well, to keep people from protesting. 100 feet, which was the original proposal, would be far enough that you wouldn't really be able to see the protesters. So that's the origin of it. And the PSC, of course, is taking a position that people have a right to protest. And of course, 100 feet is quite far. So that's something about the background.
Thank you, Marianne. Okay, well, as Bonnie just said, our next meeting, which is on April the 6th, the topic is the New York Health Act. And we're going to have 3 speakers. Also, I think solicited by Bob Nelson. Bob Nelson, as I said at the beginning of the program today, got all the speakers together for today's meeting. So we're very appreciative of that. April 6th on the New York Health Act, we have 3 speakers. We have Richard Godfried, who's one of the original sponsors of the bill. We have Jen Gabori, who's our PSC vice president, and we have Len Rodberg from the Social Safety Net Group. So it's going to be a very important meeting, I think, and hope you all can make it. That's April the 6th. So I want to thank again Marva Lilly for taking notes, Bob for getting the speakers, and Jessica for staffing the meeting. And I think we can adjourn 5 minutes early. Heather just sent me, yeah, the internet kicked her off. Oh, well. Okay. We'll be talking more about legislative stuff in the future, so not to worry. Okay, everybody. Motion to adjourn? Yes. Second? Okay. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next month.